I have a headset. Lou. I'll get this after work. You and I both talk loud enough that we'll be heard anyway. Yeah. You want to share the computer? Yeah. You see this? Yeah.
Testing, testing. John, can you hear me? You can, through the headset. Okay.
Which one do you want?
This was just an advisory. We're on the record now.
You sound good, David.
Okay. We're trying to get the technology still set up here.
David Porter, can you hear?
I can hear through the speakers on my laptop, but not through the headset.
Okay. And I can hear you through the microphone very clearly, so.
Okay, so we'll just let this one go, and therefore we got one headset that's half working, so I can still hear what's coming through the speakers.
Okay. I only have one more. That's the thing I asked. They're going to have to share that. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Speak into it. It's faint.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Now I heard that.
I gotta have the mic off. I mean, mic on.
Okay. John, are you on? You can hear? Talk, Mr. Cheshire?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep. All right, David, you're okay?
I think so.
I know we have the one that's referred to as Charlie. That one is going to be Lou and Mr. Tom. Okay.
Okay. Are we ready? We ready, Dave?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're getting the meeting started here at 9:08. Not too bad. We have a quorum within the room. Dave, do you want to ask for the names for the record and therefore to identify the quorum?
Yes, I'll go down the list. Primary for Ms. Andrews, Mr. Berger?
Yes. Yes.
Primary for Ms. Ayala, Mr. Porter, are you present?
Yes.
Primary for Mr. Barbieri, Mr. Doctor, are you present?
Yes.
And by the way, for the record, those three are present in person. Primary for Mrs. Brill, Mr. Gelfand, are you present?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Gelfand is virtual. Primary for Ms. McQueen, John Cheshire, are you present?
Yes, I'm here.
In person. We don't have a primary for Dr. Robinson. Is Ms. Gaines on virtually? Okay, so we're gonna hold on that one. I think that one's gonna be a vacant. And primary for Ms. Whitfield, Steve Needs is not present. Secondary is Virginia. Are you here? Oh, there we are. Okay, so we do have Virginia present virtually. So without Mr. Meeks, Ms. Farthing, she will be the primary voter for this meeting. So we have Virginia, John, Michael, Lou, David, and Tom are all the primaries. And there is an absence for Dr. Robinson. I believe we do have a quorum of 4 members in person.
Yes.
So I think we can get started.
Leah Gaines, I think, is indicated she's on the call.
Oh,
Yes, I see her on there now.
okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Gaines, you are present? I'm going to look at the list just to make sure.
Yeah, she is there. She's the blue L.
Ah, beautiful. Okay. All right, then Ms. Gaines is present and she will be a voting member for Dr. Robinson's seat.
Excuse me, I was advised this morning by legal that we have to poll the members to make sure the ones who are participating virtually are participating for a valid reason. And first we need to call the order the meeting with the 4 members who are present.
Okay, well, I had already, I think, called the meeting to order, and then we did the attendance, and that is the list order for the meeting. So we have been called to order. Dave has done the attendance. Now we can do the polling of the people who are not in attendance. Dave, you want to do that?
Excuse me, we need to vote. We need a motion and a second to allow members to vote if they have a valid reason.
Jim, I think Mr. Porter's going to ask each member that's hearing virtually their reason for attendance. So if it is not related to a medical reason, for example, fear of transmitting COVID, then the CORC would vote on allowing virtual members to appear virtually.
So are we allowed to accept any reason that they give us to appear virtually, or it has to be pandemic related?
It does not have to be pandemic related. They just have to, if it's not medically related, the member provides response, and then CORC would vote on it whether or not they're going to allow a member to appear virtually. It's your discretion as the board.
Okay, well, we already know who's in person. So the only 2, I believe I have 3 I have to do this with then is Virginia, Michael, and Leah. Correct? Yeah. That would be the 3. Okay, Michael, let's start with you. Reason for not attending?
Pandemic concerns. And by the way, Holly, when you speak, there's a very significant echo that makes it almost impossible to hear you.
Okay, hopefully this makes it better.
Slightly, yes. Thank you.
Okay, that was Michael. Virginia?
Health concerns.
Okay, and Leah?
In terms of where I need to be shortly after.
Leah Gaines, we need to have you unmute, I guess, and tell us the reason for not attending in person.
Can you hear me?
Okay, maybe she can't connect.
I can hear her very, very faintly. It's not that she's muted, it's that there's her microphone is not picking up what she is saying. So Leah, you may need to get closer to your microphone or speak louder.
Yes, I am. There's a problem. I can barely hear you, and I have my volume turned all the way up.
Okay, we can hear you a lot better with that than we could before. So Leah, your reason for not attending in person?
Conflict in terms of location.
I couldn't make that out.
In terms of location regarding my work requirements.
Okay, work requirements. All right, that part I got. Okay, then for the people in the room who are voting, do we have any objections for these 3 virtual attending members to participate? Not hearing any objections, then that would be an aye for all, so they are permitted.
Am I supposed to exclaim, damn?
I don't think so. Okay, then we can continue with the meeting, correct? Dave, Jim? Yes? Okay. Chairman's report. The only thing I have that you've all been already copied on by Steve Needs is that he has resigned from CORC. Probably shouldn't have emailed everybody. He's talking about sunshine violation within his email, and yet that's what he did by emailing all the members. Anyway, I think Steve just had a difference of opinion of what he thought CORC should do. So I wish him well, but that'll now be a vacant position. And that is all I had as the chairman's report. Does anyone have a conflict of interest for anything we're reviewing today? I'm not seeing anyone in the room with any of the virtual members having a conflict.
No.
Okay, hearing none, so we will continue on. CORC report. Lou, you gave a written report last month? Okay,
I think you guys got to unmute your mic.
you can assist us with that again for this? Excuse me?
I can, is this say that again?
I don't have a computer.
You do now.
do.
Okay, Tom, say what you just said.
Yes.
You issued a written report.
Issued a written report to the board, which distributed all the board members, and accepted it.
Okay, you can assist us with that again for this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, staff update. Dave and Jim.
Jim, did you have anything that you'd wanted to?
Just good morning and happy June.
I guess there's one more day of school left, right? Tomorrow.
Yes. Okay. Well, Mr. Porter, if I may, I just had a couple of things. Wanted to let everybody know, I don't tell you guys a lot about what goes on in the district, in our department. I will tell you that we are adding district staff right now. I'm sorry?
Are you hearing what we're, Michael?
Lots of feedback.
Okay.
Can you turn your mic off? I'm sitting right next to Tom, and I'm wondering, is it better now? Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that. Okay, a couple of things. Real quick, let you know, our department, we're doing a lot of changes in our department. We've had a lot of turnover recently. We are adding a whole lot of new positions. We're getting a handful of the SPAs, a couple of SPA positions on. We're working on that right now. Oh, did this stop? Oh, come on. I'll come back to that. So we are in the process of adding positions on there now. The AECOM staffing changes. Many of you may remember Virgil Bryan. Virgil is no longer with AECOM. He has moved on. He is now a program director at another school district up in North Florida. So he's had a great opportunity to move on, and we want to thank him, I guess, after the fact, for all his efforts that he made. In addition, Paul Needler is now the program director for AECOM. So AECOM has brought on 2 new people to help Paul run the program. One is Miguel Nogueros. He's going to take Paul's role as the construction guy. And there's a gentleman they just hired, just brought on, that many of you from the older days might remember. His name is George Perez. He's an architect, and he worked for the school district. He actually worked for Tom Hogarth. He is now taking over Virgil's position as the design director, as an architect. Yes, full circle, back to the district, yes. So we've got a few changes going on, some transition, but we're quite busy. One other thing I wanted to let everybody know, I don't know if many of you had too many workings with him, but Paul Strauss, the director of ECS, Paul has retired after a lot of years. The good news is many of you may know Kesta James, formerly from maintenance. She had originally come from ECS, and she'd worked there a long time and is absolutely incredible. She is the new director of Environmental Conservation Services. And so she's hit the ground running too. Some of the other things we're working on, just so everybody knows, of course, you all know that we're hitting summer. So we are working on our summer work. We're planning our summer work. We're about to get started. I've mentioned to you already that our summer is going to be a little bit diminished this summer because of the time frame. So it meant that certain scope items that we thought we were going to be able to do aren't going to be able to get done this summer. So we're making accommodations elsewhere to make that happen. In addition to that, so it's not just like we're sitting around waiting for construction to start. We've also got end of the year financial closeouts, which is a killer. But very important, making sure that we close our books properly and make sure all our contractors are paid up to date. as well as we're going through the capital plan. You may, if you follow the board, you may have seen that there was a capital workshop recently, a capital plan workshop, and there will be a couple of more. Leanne Evans at one point this summer will certainly come on and we'll do a presentation for you on that, she and I. And we're also working on a lot of planning of future FCA work, a future non-FCA work, i.e. it means all the stuff that Jim does, we're all coming up with plans. So we've got a lot of work going on, and we're looking forward to getting this work moving in earnest. With that said, I think that's it for me.
You're just trying to make me feel old with Paul Strauss retiring because it shows how long I've been on CORC.
That's right.
Okay, Jim, anything for you?
No, sir, I'm good to go today.
Okay, that's it for staff updates. Public comments. Any public comments? People online, people in the room. Seeing none in the room, seeing none online, we will continue moving on. Consent agenda. All right.
Can we move one adjustment to the agenda? Can we propose that?
Yes.
Okay, if you notice on. Oh, sorry.
My apologies. An adjustment to our schedule. If you, down under section 5, we have the Office of the Inspector General. We're fortunate enough to have our Inspector General, Ms. Teresa Michael, here, and she would like to present to the CORC members a presentation. Actually, if you wouldn't mind, would you come over?
While Dave does that, let me ask for if it's acceptable to all the members to have that done now and before we do the consent.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Michael, good? Okay, all right, proceed.
Thank you very much. You throw this at me right at the last minute. It seems like typical for the district. My name is Teresa Michael. I'm the Inspector General, and I am not here for anything that's wrong with the CORC or any concern, all right? As you may know, the Inspector General, we have an audit shop. It's one of the bigger audit shops for IG's office, and we're working on our audit plan. And audit plans are based on risk assessments. Typically, the risk assessment here has been done informally on historical knowledge. Brand new to the district, I thought this was a great opportunity to do a formal risk assessment and come out and meet everyone. One of the things I'm looking for is any insight from outside stakeholders, anything that you think that we should be looking at, any concerns that you might have. It could be related to CORC, it could be related to things you read in the newspaper. It could be related to kids that you know in the school system. We're looking for anything that we haven't covered. There may be something that we are too narrowly focused on. So if there's an issue, an area, a program that we need to audit, review, or even investigate, I'd look for your input. I know some of this might be very confidential. You may not want to say it out in the open. We typically don't like to tell the bad guys where our weaknesses are. So I would like to leave my business card here and my brochures. I know you're used to dealing with Bob Bliss and Aida Smith from my office. You can also speak to them as well. They're auditors. They're a bit more well-versed with the risk assessment. I'm an investigator by trade, so I kind of defer a lot to the auditors in that way. But I really would like the input. And it may not be anything concrete. It may be just something that you've seen in your private life and in your own business. You saw an issue and you thought, you know what, the school district should be out on the lookout for this as well. And also answer any questions you have about the IG's office. There's a lot of mystery about what we do. It's not that. Okay, can you hear me now, sir? Okay.
Is it possible to
thank you. If there's any questions you have about our office, is there any way we can help? Please let us know. I know Bob and Aida work with you guys very closely, and the whole office here, CORC, and Paul and David work very well with us. So there's no concerns on that part at all. Is there any questions anybody has?
I'll just give you some feedback from been on this for 20 years, and I can't believe it's been that long. But there was, a number of years ago, a major audit done of 2 projects of construction. And it put the construction program through at least 2 years of upheaval because of all the policies that end up having to get so much tightened up because of what auditing thought were problems. And it started forcing contractors not to be interested in working with the district because it meant payment times got stretched out so far because of all the different hoops that had to get jumped through. We have fortunately come back from that, but it has literally taken probably at least 8 years of policy tweaks that have been accepted by the IG's office and the board. For instance, use of contingency money, approval of change orders. I mean, it had gotten to the point that staff couldn't approve anything. Everything had to go to the superintendent or the board. And that just slowed everything up. And in construction, time is money, especially when you're already under construction. And so all of those CORC issues, we never had issues with the audit. It was unfortunately the very rigid outcome that came from that. We've come back from that. In fact, some of the policies we have today that we're reviewing are continually getting a little more tweaked to allow different levels of staff approval because we have to rely on our staff that's boots on the ground. So I would just hope we have that interaction with your department to the point that it's like, okay, here's the problem we see. Let's throw it back to CORC, a bunch of bright people here with staff, and let's figure out how we can get to the fix.
Most definitely. One thing is that IG's office, we're not supposed to be writing policy. We may make recommendations. We may say this policy has some issues, but we can't write policy. As soon as we start writing policy, then we're taking part of management and our independence has been tainted. So what we'll do is we can just point out issues, what I like to say is landmines, to the district, to CORC, but it's very collaborative. There's no way I would presume to be able to know what everybody here does. You know, my 2 years in contracts over at the county doesn't qualify me to sit here and say, we need to do this for change order or that. We defer. All we do is point out issues that we may see, and you can take them or leave them. That's completely up to CORC and the board.
Okay, good.
David?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you moving me up on the list.
Virginia has a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can she go in front of a camera so that we virtually can see what she looks like?
She wants her to go in front of a camera so that...
Can she be Charlie for a while or something?
That's not... Dave, that camera's still on you. That's not giving us a picture of her, so...
Yeah, we like to see her.
And David, what was her name again?
We're working on that, Virginia.
David, what is her name again? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, basically on the one that says Charlie, there she is standing in front of the room. Got it, Virginia?
Well, I
She's
see
waving.
very, very...
I'm in the Brady box below you.
Very tiny.
Yes. Well, she's not 7'4", that I can tell you.
Okay. Perhaps she'll come to another meeting.
Yes, I'm the Inspector General here at the school district. I just came on board last July, and the IG's office has 2 sections. We have audit, we have our contract oversight, and we have investigations. Investigations is the one section that gets the most attention because it usually hits the papers. One of the things that my office is now doing is we are publishing a report quarterly at the audit committee of the activities that Bob, Bliss, and Aida do here, of all of the work that they oversee. So we now publish that to show that we are providing oversight, that that we are looking at things and we are watching. And those are all available on the audit committee agendas at any time, or you can get it from Bob or Aida. Does everybody see me now?
Yes.
My
Michael,
office is going to use this video. I hope you all know. They'll probably torture me later on.
Michael, you had a question.
Yes. First, thank you, Jim and Wanda, for giving me the name. Ms. Michael, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate your efforts. There is an area that I would like perhaps you to look at. And that is the area of security-related installations and contracting. That's an area that it may be justified to be taking it out of our purview because of the need to have details not publicized as to the level of security. However, what's at least become apparent to me is that there may or may not be appropriate checklists in the planning stage to determine what security items are there, and then as part of that, is there an appropriate evaluation as to what items are actually necessary and what goals do they actually perform, if you would? Or are we just doing things because it sounds good and it makes people, feel good without having any true purpose? So, if that's something that's there, and again, that's something that's been taken out of our purview, it may be absolutely appropriate, but I've got no idea who is actually watching it. And I question whether the school board members, with everything on their plate, whether they have the expertise to provide that type of oversight. And especially as there's a significant amount of monies going into that area, that's something that I would urge you to take a look at. Thank you.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you're talking about security matters that are now in construction and any type of physical security?
Correct. Everything from, is there appropriate, well, first of all, what are the goals and how are we measuring what resources should be expended to meet reasonable expectations? Or are we just buying things because that's what other people are doing and it makes folks feel good? Second, as we move forward on construction contracts, is there a criteria for what goes where? For example, we reviewed contracts that were changed because they were adding items to it. Should not those things be part of the contracting review earlier? I talk about locks and cameras, items that become more expensive to add after the fact. I'd also to take a look at siting of items. We expended significant amount of money for a substation at Jupiter High School. I won't get into the pros and cons. If you want, you can contact me off the line. But was that properly evaluated for what the needs were? And again, the needs and the specifics are not brought to CORC because of the perceived need not to make public what the details are. And I'm not going to debate that back and forth, at least at this point. But if you want to, have some of the ideas of concerns, feel free to contact me.
I most definitely will. I will reach out to you. I'll get the contact information from Dave, and we'll reach out to you and let me do a little bit more research. And I believe that a lot of that falls within our school police department. They do a lot of the safety and security assessments. But we'll definitely look at that. That is always an issue. Security, both physical and cyber, are areas that, it's not, if you're going to be hit, but when. So that's something that we always have to keep at the utmost. We got to keep everybody safe. It does no good to have world-class education if kids are hiding underneath their desks. So we will definitely all reach out to you this week or next week.
And I can maybe summarize that a little bit. In terms of historical purposes, Stoneman Douglas happened. All of a sudden, everything is now security driven, understandably. But because it's kind of a secretive thing that we don't want to be made public, this committee really doesn't look at it like we do air conditioning or like we do concrete or like we do new roofs for a building. And we might be critical of a bid for a roof. Well, we don't get that. And so therefore, the oversight is not within CORC about security. And it's almost like a hands-off with school police, where it's like, okay, it's security. We're not going to touch them. Let them do what they need to. So if I can summarize what I think Michael was trying to get at, is that we don't know if anybody's actually looking at the dollars and cents spent by school police and whether all of that is appropriate and necessary, or is it overkill simply to make it look like we're doing more than we need to. Because again, that's out of our purview for oversight because of the public public knowledge?
My office looks at all bids. So that is something regardless of what office it comes out of, where it is, we look at that. And if there's something, especially if it's, new, or if it's risky, or if it's something we haven't covered before, we might do a deeper dive. But that's something that we're not prohibited from looking at. We can look at anything within the district. The only three things I can't do is the board members, the superintendent, and the general counsel, those individuals. Other than that, I have open for review to everything. But we will definitely look at that, and maybe I can come back with some answers for you, so to give you some reassurance and make sure that we are covering everything the way we should.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I think that helps loop us back in where they don't want us reviewing that. Perfectly understandable. I mean, we serve at the pleasure of the board. So
I can definitely follow back with you all as the independent office and take a look at everything, and then I can report back and let you know what we found.
All right. Frank, you had a question? Frank, you had raised your hand? Nope, left the meeting. I think you hit the wrong button.
All right. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time and for moving me up on the list. And if I can do of anything, please let me know. I'll leave my brochures and my cards. Please don't post them in the bathrooms, okay? I've heard that my business cards end up in a lot of bathrooms. All right, please don't do that to me. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm back on again.
All right, Frank, you're back on again. Did you have a question?
No, what I was looking for was a little more clarity about what the word risk means when they say they want to look at things that are at risk. Are we talking about how money is spent? Are we talking about the quality of construction? Are we talking about how the bidding is done, or the selection of contractors and architects? Are we talking about all of that, or are we talking about something more specific?
Frank, let me summarize because some people weren't on the mic for that. So the summary is, Frank wanted to know what is really defined as risk for what you do. Are you looking at the bids? Are you looking at the quality of construction, and how we do processes?
That's a very good question. The risk could be anything from a very minor issue to something that keeps you up at night. So if it is a matter, something that you have come across that you thought, you know what, this isn't quite right, or this could leave us vulnerable, or this is something that we're a process that is too cumbersome, or this is something that we could shore up. Those are all risks that could be most, financial. It could be to reputation. There's a lot of issues that we look at. So what I say is not err on the side of caution and report. Let us know any concerns that you have, and then we look at that. We look at it through the whole district, and we're constantly changing our audit plan as the year goes on. We have to make adjustments. But anything that you have, any suggestions that you have, any observations that you have, please let us know.
Okay, thank you.
David?
Yeah, Frank.
I noticed in that resignation letter that the gentleman talked about some things that he had brought up that nobody was paying attention to. And that to me would come under this also. For example, setting up charging stations for the future. And it's one of the kind of things that all of a sudden we find extra. Why? Well, they didn't look ahead. So maybe these are the kind of things that should be referred also.
I think that would be a CORC issue and discussion before any kind of specs get changed. I don't know if that's something that auditing would take a look at unless they felt that it was an expense that was going beyond, the normal expense route. I think, as she mentioned, when we get to things like that, you're welcome to bring them up and say, look, I think this needs to be investigated further.
By all means, anytime that you have anything, and we do have a confidential hotline, you do not have to give your name. You can, email, or you can just reach out to our staff individually. It's up to you, whatever you're most comfortable with, or it can come back to the CORC meeting. I know Bob is here, or every time they're virtual, if not present, and they can answer any questions, and they can refer things to the audit office. So we're always available to any of the advisory committees.
Okay, thank you. I think we're now done back and forth there. All right, let's get back on our meeting. We are down to the consent agenda. So get your pages out, everybody. Let's go down the list. BCS1. No one in the room pulled it, and I'm not seeing anybody online saying they want to pull it. So that one is acceptable. FC1. I wanted that pulled.
I do, David.
And John. FC2. No one. FC3. No one. FC4. Hold on. Frank, did you want something pulled? No. Michael, which one?
4, please. FC4.
4. Okay, Michael. Okay, FC5. Okay, FC6. All right, that's acceptable. PC1. Okay. PC2. Excuse me? PC2 is geotech.
Yes.
PC3.
Please pull
I
2.
wanted that one. Michael wanted that one.
2.
Michael wants 2.
You want 2, Michael?
Correct.
Okay. PC3, I wanted that. Anybody else? Nope. And PC4. Being none. Okay, from the voting members, I need a motion to accept the ones that were not pulled. Tom did that. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Lou. Sorry, Virginia.
No problem.
He beat you out. Okay, let's see here. First one pulled, I pulled and John pulled, FC1.
Did you call the vote? Did you call the vote on that
I'm
one?
sorry, we do need to vote, good, Virginia, and we need to poll. So I guess Dave, you're our polling person.
Okay. Mr. Berger.
Aye.
Mr. Porter.
Aye.
Mr. Doctor.
Aye.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Chester.
Aye.
Ms. Gaines.
Aye.
And Ms. Farsi.
Ferris?
What was I saying, Farsi?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we have a unanimous go ahead. All right, let's go to FC1 now, John.
Yeah, just real quick. I had a question on item 1 and item 14. These were added survey services to designs, and my question was, why are we adding the survey services?
I'm going in the shower.
And they came back that the design for those areas were added later on. My question is, why wasn't the survey added at the same time as the design was added? Why did it come back later?
Is this for FC1?
Yes.
Okay, I think we got a little background. Okay, FC1, Highland Elementary. This was actually an error.
I'm not sure you're coming over. Are you?
Are you hearing?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. We're still getting feedback. I'm sorry. Tom, are you guys muted?
Nope.
All right, try that. Okay. Better? Okay, with Highland Elementary, I guess I'm going to kind of say that this might be an error on staff in that we did, if for any of you who are familiar with Highland Elementary, there's a parking lot or there's a piece of land that we owned across the street from it that is being used as a kind of a temporary parking lot. When we did the FCA, we looked at the information and didn't realize that parking lot was part of the SCA. So when we did the assessment on the entire school based on the FCA, we did not include that parking lot. Once we got into it, we then found out that the folks who did the FCA said, wait a second, we put money in there for that parking lot. So when we originally contracted with the consultant, we had specifically excluded that parking lot across the street from anything being done to it. Subsequent to that, staff found out errantly that we had excluded it and then decided to come back to it. That's all.
Yeah, but my question is, you added the design later, and then after you added the design, now you're coming back and adding the survey. Why didn't you include the survey when you added the design initially?
I don't think we actually did two separate. Did we? Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. Did we do two separate design and survey? I didn't think we did.
It is possible that happened, but obviously you need the survey to do the design of a parking lot. So apologize for that.
Can I get back to you then on that? If there are two separates,
it's not that important. It just seems odd. There was two of them, same situation. It appears you added design as an ad service, but didn't add the survey until later on. It just seems they'd go together. Not a big deal.
Can agree.
Thank you.
The item I had was even on the reply that we got the responses back on number 12 on the contingency use, where a subcontractor couldn't do what he had to do and you had to go to the next higher subcontractor. And I still have issues with the term buyout overage. I think this won't be the last time that you have a subcontractor bow out and they have to go to the next higher one. I would just like to see the term we use be something that's almost immediately understood, something like sub-bid default, because that's what happened. The subcontractor essentially defaulted.
Okay.
And we went to the next guy, which was more expensive, and that's why it's a higher cost.
Jim, I don't see any reason why we can't, when we put the cause in, put in parentheses, sub-bid default as the specific term, so that it's very clear and understood that the overage is due to that circumstance.
Understood. We can do that. Maybe you want to add that to the policy or not? Just leave it as a description for CORC.
Oh, I think we can just do the description, but add it at the bottom where you have all the descriptions. I'm not looking for it to be a policy thing, but just that when the next SBA that you just hired a whole bunch of get to use this stuff, they go down the list and they know what to check off as to reason.
10-4, will do.
The other thing I had was on number 21.
David, before you go on.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. That buyout is still very confusing to me, so thank you very much.
Okay. The next item I have was on item 21 for Washington Elementary. We've had a bunch of sometimes costly change orders, all MEP related on Washington. So I think somebody needs to have a serious conversation with RGD. They were the engineer on the project, and from the stuff I'm reading, that was extra charges from them. It is stuff that I wouldn't be hiring a mechanical engineer if they missed that much stuff.
Mm-hmm. I also would question the CM at risk. You know, that at risk part, White's was involved in the design process. That's what we paid them at risk for. How do we have, I'm playing devil's advocate as you would and say, where was the CM to say during design, hey, you didn't put any plumbing in for the sink that you're telling me you didn't.
No, I agree with that. I think it's even the architect. I mean, the architect's responsible for all of these. So it's the architect, the CM, even the building department, which reviews a lot of stuff. It's a whole team effort that missed a lot of MEP things, and they weren't just $5 here, $5 there. John.
David, I agree about RGD, just not this month, but in the last 6 months, it just seems like every time it's RGD. So they do need to be brought in and slapped on the wrist or something. And the second thing is, I agree with David Dolan about the CM. I've thought that to myself. Why doesn't the CM find these things? There was a couple on there where there was an electrical to, I forget what it was that was missed. Well, the CM is supposed to be reviewing the plans and finding those kind of things before they bid it out. So I agree with both of those statements.
Well, and the reason we use the CM at risk process is that it's not just the architect kicking the drawings out to the field and then the contractor finds it and it becomes a change order. It's so that stuff gets caught.
Exactly.
It's a process. And so, yeah, there's some wrist whacking, knuckle whacking to be handed out. Because again, that was really 3/4 a brand new complex of building. There were 2 small buildings that were reused. So this is not a renovation they can blame on unforeseen conditions.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I had on FC1. Anyone else with FC1? Need a motion?
I move that we move FC1 to the board.
Okay.
Second.
Virginia, you got in there. Okay, Virginia seconded it. All right, Dave, you have to poll this again.
Okay. Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
Miss Gaines.
Yes.
Virginia.
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, we are down to FC4. Michael, you had pulled that.
Building 2 had a new roof on there, as I recall. Which building is building 2?
Michael, you'll need to either speak up for us or move closer to your mic. Thank you.
Sure.
Way better.
Building 2, he showed a new roof. Which building is building 2?
I'm terribly sorry. In all honesty, I don't know which one is building 2. Is there one in particular that you're thinking of? What I can do is I can get back with you and provide you an email afterwards with a sketch of the roof. Is there something specific that I could help with on that?
My recollection is building 2 is the orphaned building out there that serves no purpose, but the city wanted us to keep it, and it has no educational purpose, and we're not using it.
I believe that's building 7 or 4, Michael.
All right, that's why I wanted to know whether it was the building that is orphaned or not.
No, it's the one that's still fenced off and boarded up and nobody's touching or using it. But I'm pretty sure that was not 2.
All righty, good, thank you.
Okay, if that was it on FC4, then I need a motion to move forward.
Move to go forward.
All right, Virginia first. Need a second? Second by Tom. Go ahead, Dave. Paulus.
Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
Miss Gaines.
Yes.
Miss Ferris.
Very good. Yes.
Okay. PC3 was the last one pulled. I pulled that one. And the only reason I pulled that was for kind of a congrats to our systems. Cooper Construction is going to be the prime. And as many of you know, Cooper has come up through what used to be our MWBE program under other larger contractors as a sub, came all the way up, and now they have gotten a couple of prime jobs. They are a minority contractor. I'm very glad to see that, and that the system has worked to bring them up to kind of full status. And the other good news is that they are bringing in a non-minority, Alan Gast, who used to be on our CORC committee, and Alan is now going to be the SBE partner. So it's kind of like the flip side, and nice to see that the minority in the SBE systems that the district promotes is working in that direction. So that's the only thing I had on that. Yes.
PC4 pulled or not?
No, did you want PC4?
I had a question on PC4.
Okay, we'll get to that one. All right, anyone else on PC3?
Move to go forward.
Virginia had a first, need a second?
Second.
Second by John, and go ahead and poll us, Dave.
Okay, Mr. Berger,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Doctor,
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand,
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes.
Ms. Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Lou did want PC4 pulled, so we will go to PC4.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm familiar with the tie baking process in terms of selecting the appropriate contractor. I noticed on this one, Seminole Ridge, there were 4 tie breakers listed. How does that process work?
It's Seminole Trails, by the way.
I'm sorry, Seminole Trails. Yep.
Yeah, there were 4 ties. That was interesting. So that must have really gone way down into the weeds for the tie-breaking procedure.
As I understood, the tie breaking is a flip of a coin, either way it moves. And if you have 4 tie breakers, what was the process? Did they start with 4? Did they start with 2? How does the process work?
Well, in the RFP, there is a tie-breaking procedure that's already pre-spelled out in all the RFPs. Every RFP that you
That's not my question. How did we have 4 tie breakers?
I don't know how you got 4 tied.
I read it on the ranking sheet. It's double asterisk, which is
I know.
tiebreaker.
Yeah.
And it listed 4 vendors and the tiebreaker.
Well, they all got the same score.
They all got the 4. There were 4.
And they did the tiebreaker.
So how did they resolve it?
As I'm saying, in every RFP, there is an actual written out policy for how they do the tiebreaker. The first thing I believe is they have to have a drug-free workplace certificate. But what I'm getting at is I don't know how they do it on 4 and how far down they had to go. But
Can we ask Mark Moon?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Moon, are you on the meeting?
I am, and essentially, David's correct. There's a process for the tie breaking outlined in the RFP, and to Mr. Cheshire's point, there were 4 firms. This goes back some period of time, so I don't specifically remember all the details, being asked the question kind of point blank. But there were 4 firms that ended up with the same final ranking order, so the tie-breaking process was implemented to break the ties between each of the firms to establish a final ranking order that was posted in the tabulation. So, if you want us to go back and resurrect the specific way that each tie was broken between each firm for that particular selection, I suppose we can go back and resurrect the way that was done and report back to you, Mr. Doctor. But essentially, that process took place many weeks ago, and I don't recall the specifics of it.
Mark, is it like a golf tiebreaker where you play the first hole and if you don't qualify after that first hole, you're out? Once it's due, keep going.
It's not like that. It's as David pointed out in the RFP. There's a specific process, and that's followed in order to break the tie. So again, first might be drug-free, second might be whether the firm is SBE, third has something to do with the total points awarded. The fourth might be a coin toss. I'm kind of in favor of rock, paper, scissors. I've always been overruled. Thought that might be quicker and a lot more fun. But we can, in all seriousness, we can, Mr. Doctor, if you'd like us to go back and establish the exact way that these ties were broken and write that up and send it to Jim so he can disseminate the information, we can do that if it's of importance.
Is that what you'd like, Lou? You'd like to see how they got to that point?
This particular case only.
Okay. Mark, I would think that that's already documented based on how it was done and in writing from that meeting.
It's in the between the audio recording and somewhere in probably the way the scoring was done. I have to go back and review it, David. I mean, I don't know when the selection committee took place, but we can rest assured it's been probably 2 months ago.
Yeah. I would see what you have in writing, because I got to think something's in writing that would have documented that, not just an audio recording that might get buried somewhere.
Can we report back to CORC?
Yes.
Next month?
We'll do a follow-up on that.
Thank you.
Okay, then I need a motion for PC4.
Motion.
All right, Virginia, we'll give you the second on that one. Lou had already tied you to get the first in there.
Rock, paper, scissors, Lou won.
Okay.
See, I got somebody else that agrees with me.
Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
And Ms. Ferris.
Yes.
Okay. And I think we have to go back to to PC2. I think we skipped it. Mr. Gelfand was looking for that one.
Okay. We did skip that one, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, PC2.
No problem. Is this to approve a contract for future work, or is the work already done?
It's for future performance. It's actually not a contract for them. It's only an extension or an increase in the dollar value of that contract. It's an annual contract. It's set at $500,000. This year, because we have 2 new construction projects going on that are big, we were going to need more money just for those 2 projects. So we were going to exceed the $500,000 limit. So we're going to the board to ask for an increase in the extension for that contract.
All right. So at this point, the contracts that I see, and I don't see an extension for dates.
It's not.
I'm sorry?
It is not an extension for dates. It's not even an extension of the contract or an adjustment to the contract. It's board approval to extend the dollar value of the contract for the year.
Request for additional funding to be spent for the remaining term of this contract, which I believe is to August, to accommodate the 2 projects that we have. Request for construction testing services, which is O High School and elementary school 05C. So the contract will expire. It's in its final term, will expire in August, and we have a solicitation out right now to select new firms to begin a new contract period, and we'll go to the board in August.
So for the architect, engineer types on the committee, I'm just looking then at a $500,000 increase to be spent within 2 months' time on 2 projects, and just need some reassurance that that's appropriate.
Well, I was going to have a question on that, because even though the contracts expire in August, obviously the schools are barely going to be under construction by August. So wouldn't this money cover their services, even though the contracts expire in that time, all the way through the whole school construction?
Yes.
Okay. So, Michael, it's not just to take us up to August. It's literally for at least the next 18 months that money will cover the firms that are doing the geotechnical testing for 2 fully brand new ground up schools.
So why aren't we extending the contracts then?
We will be actually on the selection committee in July. These are continuing term contracts where the district hires these people, not the contractor. We do our own testing of materials and soils. And so there will be a new selection that maybe the firms that are being hired now and paid this money may not even be interested or be reselected for continuation of the continuing contracts. But these firms will still at least finish out these jobs.
My quizzical look or tone is that we're approving for a current contract that ends in August, but this is actually going to be for work that's after the contract has concluded, and we're going to be putting this out for bid. And will there, because you said we have a selection committee, that's going to be looking at potentially new vendors for this work or new contractors. Am I just not perceiving what the actual process is here?
I think the way it works on the continuing contracts is that, let's say we hire somebody on a continuing contract 4 days before the contract expires. I believe that their services will still continue through the length of that particular job that they have been hired for, even though that is outside of the limits of their term contract selection.
You can't, from a finance perspective, you cannot enter into a contract without the full amount of money available to their contract. You can't say, well, the next 2 months they're only going to do, $100,000 worth of work, even though over the life of the contract it might be 500. So we needed to make sure the money was available through the contract as is in the time frame we're looking, the start time frame.
So do the contracts for these vendors, are they written to the point that their actual contract term is up after their job is done instead of at a renewal date?
Right.
Okay. So it seems like that's it, Michael. We're calling it contract is up in August, but not technically. Their contract for these jobs won't be up until their services are done for these jobs.
And just as a point of clarification, Michael, we enter into a written amendment for each particular project, so that it's got a defined scope of the work that the engineer will do, notwithstanding the fact that the original contract, the main contract, that the continuing contract that exists, we do have an independent written agreement for that.
Good, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. That helps out. So the next question, independent question on this is $500,000 for these two projects an appropriate amount? I don't have a knowledge base to evaluate that.
I would say yes, because again, that's a capped number that we may never get to. That's actually, I don't think, Dave, correct me, but I don't believe that's an actual contract services amount. I believe that's just a pot of money that has to be there that we may get near, but we're talking about a brand new high school from ground up where they're doing soil testing, concrete testing, every other type of testing, moisture testing. Two brand new schools, one's a 3-story and one's, I think, a 2-story. So I actually think they're both 3-story. So yeah, I don't know if that's the right amount or not, but we're only going to spend what we spend, even though that money's being appropriated.
All
right. Forgive me, but I think in the write-up, we had identified the contract values anticipated for those two schools. I want to say it was like 275 and 150, something like that.
I think one of them was 325, and the other one was 100 something.
Right. So there wasn't an anticipated value for each of those contracts in order to validate the need for 500. Why was it 500, not 700?
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to need a motion then
Move to go forward.
All right, Virginia, very good. I need a second. Second by John. Go ahead and poll us, Dave, on
okay, Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Doctor.
Yes.
Mr. Gelfand.
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire.
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
Ms. Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, we are done consent. We are back
David,
on.
can you hear me?
Somebody say
yes.
something.
Mr. Simon, go ahead.
At the beginning of the meeting, I think you took a vote to allow the people who were on Zoom to also vote, correct?
Only the primary members.
Hmm?
The way the current temporary policy.
No, I'm not a
is,
primary.
You're not a primary today.
Okay.
In progress FCA work, Dave.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me see
I'm
if I
on low
can.
battery over here, so I don't know if I'll make it. I may have to just come and share somebody else's screen.
We have plugs. No, we just got to get you plugged in. Okay. Can somebody tell me? Do you see this on your screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. This is the same meeting that we do, same report we do every month. I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible. These are the numbers. We continue to do a strong participation, small business participation, and as you can see, we're kind of knocking out the over $500 million in revenues and $500 million committed to projects. So we are proceeding in earnest. These next two slides represent the projects that are RFPs that were going to be coming out, dollar values identified there. And this sheet is also similar to the item that's on the purchasing website. So if anybody's watching and wondering how do they know about what these projects are, they can obviously go on the CORC website, but they can also go on the purchasing website to find out when these things are advertised. Quite a bit of work still coming up, a few modernizations to go. Okay, upcoming GMPs. Right now we're working through some struggles on Delray Full Service, so we anticipate we're going to bring that to the committee in August. We're going to try in July, but I'm going to be conservative and say we'll get it to you in August. And then we've got 3 more facility renewals coming forward in the last quarter. Okay, development activities. A lot of work going on. Design services. We're procuring Crystal Lakes and Point Siena. That should come through shortly. We're advertising a number of projects, a core expansion, a bunch of facility renewal projects, advertised next month. We're going to start the procurement in September. Scope of work for the rest of our FY23 facility renewals, scheduled for advertisement over the next 3 months. Roosevelt Full Service, that's in my ballpark right now. We're working with academic to make sure we line up the scope for that project, and we would anticipate that's going to go out in the fall. So we're looking for late fall approval on that one. Transportation projects, we've kind of taken a little bit of a sidestep on that, where we've been talking about doing them, but we're wanting to make sure that we've lined up all of our concerns ahead of time. So we've got a little bit of a delay in doing a quick master planning on the 3 different sites, and we anticipate those will also go out this fall. Delray Full Service, as I said, the GMP expected at the August meeting. Design for all those facility renewals. 17 PP Middle School, that is continuing. We expect to start. We're going to bring that forward to you both for approval and for observation this fall, and we'll start construction in January 22. Design started for the 8 contracts that we just approved, so those things should be going forward next spring and next summer on construction. I'm not going to go through all the facility renewal projects, but you can see that as always, we identify the activities that are ongoing at these facility renewals. School's on, and all these principals, I got to give them a big shout out, because each and every one of them has been really gracious in this trying time in allowing us and our contractors to be able to work in the school while kids are in there. So we still maintained a good pace on the program on these facility renewals. Okay, some of the photos from work going on.
I hope that wasn't a new paint scheme on the side of that building.
Well, that's actually the thing. It's wall repairs.
I figured that.
Yet, but we did the repairs.
It looked like maybe the Dreyfus students had gone nuts on the walls.
Yeah, it's an abstract, right?
New security features.
Okay, you'll notice on this next one, we've got a lot of the same types of things, but I'm really happy to see that elevator and press box at the Wellington High School, the bleachers. It's a long time coming, and it's a great project. It's coming along very well. Nobody ever gets all that excited about equipment, HVAC equipment, except when it works really well, and then everybody's super stoked. So they may not look pretty, but they're really important. So you see the casework. I also wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. This month has been a little bit of a busy month for us. You'll see that we actually had 2 groundbreakings on our 2 new construction projects. Triple O High School there, and oh man, I just realized I'm the first person on that picture for the O5C.
I saw that yesterday on Facebook. Yes.
I should have been hidden on the backside. You don't put the big guy in the middle there. So very excited. Those projects are moving forward. As a matter of fact, Triple O I know has already done a lot of the vegetative clearing, and a lot of the site work is about to get started.
I want to know if we get a credit from the CM for the dirt that you guys moved during the shuffling process. It's an extra because they moved the dirt in the wrong spot.
Well, and that's at the irony was yesterday. Yesterday was the O5C, and literally at the end, after we had all thrown the dirt, the Moss superintendent goes, "All right, now I need it over here." Perfect response. Okay, I'm going to kind of zip over these. What I will tell you is Washington and Addison Meisner, they're both at the finish line. Washington, I believe, and I'm going to speak out of turn, but I believe we got our TCO yesterday. If not, it might have been this morning. All the furniture has been delivered into Washington. Washington's probably about 3 weeks ahead, phased ahead of Addison Meisner, because Addison Meisner, we had to actually knock the school down at the start of the summer last year. So Washington is basically done. And I say that with, we got a TCO. There's plenty of work that's going to be going on. We're going to be loading educational material in the school soon, et cetera. So even some of these descriptions are probably about a week early. Since this time, we've completed a lot of the Washington stuff. There's some of the nice pictures. Aerials. You can see there's a building in the bottom here and the building in the middle. There's the horseshoe. The building in the middle is an existing building. It used to be the administration office. And the building in the bottom here is a former building. Both of those buildings were basically fully renovated instead of being built new. So it's a combination. I think we've done that on some of the past ones, conservatory and the like.
Dave, do we take these drone photos, or are they supplied by the CM?
CM's provided them. You can see the furniture at Washington. Okay, and Addison Meisner is in a very similar position, only slightly behind. We're going through our final inspections, and we expect closing up ceilings in the very short order. You can faintly see we need a little bit of grass on the parking lot, but the parking lot is paved. And this is the back side of the school. And to be honest with you, those photos might be a week or two old as well. So they might have already done the sod, but you can see Sands furniture. And there's a little bit of overhead that's not complete yet. Also, Plamosa School of the Arts. That is the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade Suffolk Construction is working on, that addition. That building is probably, let's say, another 2 weeks behind Addison. The building looks good. And keeping in mind, the advantage we have on this is that this 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they are only loading the 6th graders this year. So it's not going to be a full building. It's not going to be fully occupied. We literally only have to load the first floor with kids. Nonetheless, Suffolk indicates that they are in fact on target, and they do expect that they will be complete on time to open the whole campus for the start of the new school year. You can kind of see the quasi L shape with the bus loop we increased. And I think there's a photo in here I'll show of the, is it called the clef, the musical note thing? There you go. There's some of the artwork that's been adhered to the perimeter. So you can see it's coming along. It's very close to the finish line, but not nearly as far along as Washington and to that matter, Addison, but still in good enough shape. It's mid-June. We're very confident that they'll make this completion. The Jupiter High School modular additions, big topic is that the ag program that we did in May is just about to get started. This is with Mr. Hatcher Construction. And then where all the real hard work goes, and I have to say that because Jim makes all this stuff look good. These are all Jim's projects, or a lot of the big Jim projects, the ones that he and the team are moving forward on.
What is a hurricane shelter water bottle filling fountain?
Oh,
the very bottom.
Well, here it's a wonderful feature. We have I want to say 17, 18. I probably got the wrong number, Jim. You could speak up, but we basically realized we had all these shelters, and we have water fountains at all the locations, but we do not have bottle filling stations. And now, especially in today's day and age with COVID and whatnot, everybody brings their own bottle and they feel safe and secure. Okay. So we're adhering bottle filling stations there.
Okay.
We're doing that at other places, but we're focusing on this because we're literally doing it's the beginning of June. We better get these darn things in just in case. So,
did our master spec change for drinking fountains to make sure that we put in bottle filling drinking fountains in all new projects?
We've always had them. And I think you saw one of the change orders that the consultant just missed it. It was in the spec. They should have done it. They missed it. So it has always been there. We are, in fact, the one thing I will say we are doing, and Jim can speak on this a little bit more, but we're re-looking at whether those bottle filling stations are, because most of the water fountains aren't going to be on generators. Can they operate without power? Because the chiller, okay, if the power goes out, no big deal. They can drink lukewarm water, but can the water be forced up? Can they operate without? Or do they have a switch?
I believe that all the drinking fountains operate under water pressure, and it's only the condenser that's like a little air conditioner that chills the water operates on power. So if you just unplug it, I believe you're going to find that you still get water flow.
Right. I think they have an arrestor in the water fountain device, because I think if you actually had plain water pressure, it might even shoot harder. So that's why we're trying to understand the details behind it. We're working with Tom Hogarth's group to try to find the spec for something like that, just because we don't want to get caught where if power goes out and we still need water for the kids and for the people in the shelters.
Yeah, as long as you don't have a boil water rotor at that point, because the water system went down at the same time.
Well, we do have a cistern. We do have in the hurricane shelters, at least, we have those separate water service. We store the water in advance.
Do you have any bottle filling water fountains in this building?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, just unplug one. You'll find out if it still flows.
Well, and I know that we've done water bottle filling stations at because some of the schools we actually had a challenge. I think I mentioned to some of you, the water bottle filling stations. The old fountain has a single plug, so the wall has a single outlet, not a duplex, but a single outlet for the water fountain to plug into. Well, we go and change these out at some of the facility renewals and realize, oh gosh, they have two plugs. And we figured out that, we don't have to do the chiller. They can deal without it. It's cold enough. But we needed the pump to pump the water through the dispenser. So like I said, we're still kind of working on it. It's just the little details that we got to make sure we address them globally. Okay. Oh, Jim's got even more work. So a whole second page. And I say that jokingly. Jim has done an immense amount of work because a lot of these are, while the facility renewals are really great, we never want to forget about the minor projects because these are the ones that actually affect the schools immediately. It's something that the principal sees and the teachers see, and it really has a great impact on them right away.
I thought all Jim did was coordinate CORC people.
No, Jim's one of the hardest working men around, if not the hardest.
Can I go back for a moment?
Sure.
The Jupiter substation. That gets back to my concern over oversight as to what is being done in terms of security. I don't know if there's anything that can be said. This is the police station at Jupiter High School. Is that the same thing there?
Yeah, it's the bank at the corner of Jupiter High School, yes.
Right. So I just state my concerns over that.
Okay. Well, if I may, on the Jupiter Bank, we know that that substation, we had a budget, and basically we explained to you all at a CORC meeting what was going to go in that building. You know, the types of things, the storage, the evidence storage, and that kind of thing, and a certain number of people and stop down areas, that kind of thing. We also had a budget. And the reason why it's where it is now at 100% drawings is because we went through the whole process and we had to peel back a lot to get it to be under budget. Because as you're concerned, we'd love to give them the moon, the stars, and the sun, but we know what's right. We have a budget, and we're sticking with it. We're making sure that the facility serves the purpose of the police, the school police, but within the budget. And that's why we're where we're at now. So I'll give you more information as the project proceeds.
I mean, this just reinforces my concerns that we do not have clearly identifiable goals that have reasonable expectations of success. Not necessarily that we have to review them, but that someone does. And if we're having cutbacks on it, it seems to indicate that from the get-go, we did not have clear identifiable goals, and that we're just keeping up as we're going on.
Dave, I think what might be helpful to just kind of resolve this lingering question is at a future meeting, and you're not disclosing anything publicly about security. It just tells the process. I mean, school police ask for something, and what's the process that it goes through? Because we're not reviewing it, and that's fine. I mean, somebody on the school board asks us, okay, what are you guys doing about security? It's like, it's out of our hands. School police can kind of do what they want. Well, probably they can't do what they want. It has to go through some type of review process.
I just want you guys to stay on focus. This is not about a security project. I understand the concern that you all have mentioned about security measures and whether we're staying in budget and whether we're doing what's right with the money. This is simply about a facility that is not a security project. It's a regular project. It's a question of whether this project happens to be about school police, but there are plenty of other minor projects where if you want to get into the weeds of whether it's justified or whether we're spending the right amount of money, this is part of that staff needs to be responsible for making sure we do our own due diligence. These projects are legitimately brought forward with a proper budget, not excessive, certain meeting to the students or in this case, staff.
Yeah, I don't look at this particular project, and I wasn't referring to this project in terms of what I was suggesting in terms of security. But, you know, for this project, I look at this like no different than the medical clinic that was just installed at Forest Hill.
Correct.
I mean, it's a construction project. We did look at it. We didn't question whether they need 3 exam rooms or 2 exam rooms. That wasn't our purview. And like, school bus maintenance facility, no, we know about school construction. We don't know how many bus wash bays you may need at a certain facility. So yeah, you bring us a budget and you bring us a project and we're going to look at it. And I agree, at least for me, this building is just another ancillary building that happens to be for school police. I would like to know the process by how school police, does their security, but the process in terms of how they come up with a plan, how do they get it funded, at what point does somebody, and who is that somebody, says, no, I'm sorry. I mean, that's too far. We're not going to give you a helicopter for every school to hover over top of them to watch it full time.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
And can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
In new business, I want to come back to the security thing. So let's let him finish this, and then we'll have a little discussion about that at new business. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dave. Question I did have for you, the new Boynton Beach Middle School you mentioned. I thought that Odyssey was a middle school for Boynton that closed down because it didn't have enough students, laid empty for maybe a year, and now we transitioned it over to South Tech. So now we need a middle school for Boynton? I don't understand why we gave one up and now we need a new one. And you can do that in follow-up, but I think there needs to be some explanation for how did we let a school go dormant? Now we found another purpose for it instead of it being dormant. And now we're coming back going, oh, by the way, now we got too many students, we need a middle school again.
I'll get back with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I know that, for example, the 17 PP is serving overcrowding at certain schools, like Woodlands, for example, and Krista McAuliffe. Now, I don't want to speak to the boundaries and the boundary changes, et cetera, that go along with that. So if you'll afford me the opportunity, we'll do a follow-up on that. I'll have the right people in the room to give you a better explanation.
Yeah, I think that just goes down as a next meeting or the meeting after agenda. I mean, if it's already in the works, it's already in the 5-year plan. Again, we're not going to question that. Whether it's politics, whether it's demographics, that's not us. We are approving when you throw a budget at us and a plan at us to whether we think that's adequate. But I kind of would like that answer for had we let a school go empty and now all of a sudden within 2 years we need a new school. So,
David, you hit it. You hit it when you said politics.
Anything else by anyone with follow-up for Dave?
You hit it when you said politics and demographics. Those are the reasons behind this.
Well, to me, the demographics would be already something that would have been known, and therefore you don't let the school go empty.
Different type of demographics. It's nothing that we want to discuss here.
Okay.
I would tend to agree with Ms. Ferris.
Well, politics I can understand, and if that happens, that happens. And again, we can't control that. If it was known demographics, then it would be like, okay, did we want to just get rid of an old school and build a new school? No. Okay. Discussion for another time.
Yeah.
In another venue.
Okay, understood. Okay, anything else for Dave? All right, we are done with that. We are down to review policies. We have nothing for follow-up. Jim Kennard, do you want to go over policies?
Yes, first I'd like to say thank you for your comments about minor projects, but all of Dave's team here are pulling the wagon. I'm telling you, everyone is busy and we're making stuff happen. I almost said a bad word. We're making stuff happen. Dave Dolan, could you please pull up 7225 red line? And I'll start my comments by saying that this has been deferred several times. And I did receive comments from Mr. Cheshire in between CORC meetings related to a specific topic that's very important to Dave Dolan and I. And so I'd like to address that one first before I open the floor to anyone who has a comment on any of these policies. So if you go to line 112, Dave, it talks about regulatory agencies. And part of Mr. Cheshire's comments, and I'll let him clarify if he needs to, is that in other venues for which I've worked, the county, water management district, Lee County, a regulatory agency was strictly another state agency that had control over certain aspects of our projects. But here at the school district, we have a number of departments that control scope. And all of them are given an opportunity to review our plans before we get out to bid. However, they do come up with comments during the course of work. And I'll give you several examples before I turn the table over to CORC. And one is, for instance, school police will come in to our projects after construction and test the radio repeaters. And they're going to tell us whether or not they're good. And in the recent past, we've had one CCUA that removed a radio repeater and another CCUA that added a radio repeater. And we declared that to be a regulatory agency. We also have our ECS department, our environmental people, who look at our MSDS sheets, the specifications. They look for mold and air quality issues, and if they have any, we want them to be addressed before school opens, and we will follow their recommendation. For risk management, we insist that they come and inspect our playgrounds, because at the very end, we want to make sure there are no tripping hazards, no ponding water, no trees hanging over fences, no site issues with where people might want to snatch a child, that kind of thing. And in the last departments, our IT and ET, our technology, if they sometimes come into our schools and want to make a change, and that's their scope. And the difference between the school district and other agencies that I've worked for is that we will ignore late requests in other locations, but we're not going to ignore them here. We're going to comply. And the only issue then is, do we implement this work by CCUA, which is keeping the money within the contract, or do we penetrate the GMP by having a change order, which penetrates? It means we're adding money from somewhere else and putting it already into the GMP. I think that's a bad business practice. And I think, Dave Dolan, I think I've tried to summarize why we would prefer to keep these as regulatory agencies, to keep money within the GMP useful and readily accessible to us. So I'll ask Dave if he agrees with me or clarify, and then we'll turn it over to John or anyone else.
I agree.
So Jim, let me ask you a question about the term regulatory agency. Is that defined in the document of what agencies that means?
I tried to do that right there on line 12. And basically what I've said is any department or entity that has a control over the scope in my project, for which I do not have the authority to overrule them.
Yeah, because like you just mentioned risk management. To me, that's a district department. That would not be a regulatory agency, where to me a regulatory agency would be Water Managed District, FPL, Palm Beach County Utilities, police departments outside the district, even the police department or the building department within the district. They are essentially meant to be autonomous outside agencies. They just happen to be part of the district. So that's where I get mixed up when I see regulatory agency, and it happens to be, the head of maintenance coming through saying, well, we need this done here. And you just say, well, they're part of the regulatory agency is what we meant.
There might be a better way to say it, Mr. Porter. But basically, it's another entity that has control over the scope of my project.
John, you got something?
Yeah, I'm the one that brought this up. I strongly feel a regulatory agency is an entity outside of the school district. Any school district department does not have a definition of a regulatory agency. Now, if you want to change the paragraph here and suit what you want there, Jim, that's a different story. And I don't know if I would agree with that, but I strongly disagree that you include school district departments within the definition of regulatory agency. I'm not even sure I agree that FPL is a regulatory agency. That one is a borderline to me, but definitely not your IT department or your police department or any of your internal school district departments. Those are not regulatory agencies.
I think, Jim, you can just reword it and add another line if you need to. Separate regulatory agencies from other in-house departments. And we're not saying we deny what the police or the environmental people may say you need after something's been built. We all want the best product, and we don't all have a working crystal ball. But I just think lumping it into all being a regulatory agency starts to get to be not understandable by everybody.
I understand your statement and your concern, and I'd be happy to add a new definition in there and include that. But I'd like to know that you all agree that our situation is a little different here, and our stakeholders are children, and we're going to do it. So
I personally don't have any problem using the contingency in a way that is adding something to an existing project under construction instead of having to go all the way back through the change order process. Obviously, we have to go through the change order process if we've already exhausted the contingency and we're maxed out with the contract, and we still find something that's necessary.
Is that palatable with everyone else? I'd like to know that I'm not banging my head against the wall, you know?
John?
Well, I guess I'd like to see how it's worded, but I have a little uncomfortable feeling using contingency for district changes. If it's not a change, as we defined it, that's a story. But if all of a sudden you want to, I can't even think of a good example right now, but if you want to add something that's really not clearly within the design of the project, I would have difficulty with that. So I just need to see how you're going to word it.
Okay, I'll take a crack at adding a new definition and bring it back to you at the next meeting.
And I think what we're saying, Jim, in concept is if it's something legitimate, like, an extra camera for security, or as you're saying, the repeater is working or not repeating, understood that we can't see everything on a piece of paper and that you got to be actually out there to see something working or not working and fix it. To me, I think that is very valid. But it needs to be tightened up a little bit that is what we all mean. John?
Yeah, in that case, David, that's an unforeseen condition. So they've already got a definition for it. So I'm not sure what he's going to add here that's going to work, but let's see.
Yeah, I agree with that. For instance, Jim, let's say that we get 98% done to school and the principal changes and the new principal comes in and they want basically gold plating on all their walls. I know it's a silly example. Okay, somebody's got to be able to say no instead of that being something that they get approved. And maybe they're not an outside agency. So again, that might not be a good example, but if it's an unforeseen condition or something that was done in error, then yeah, we got to fix it. And yes, contingency should be allowed for that.
So are we suggesting that an agency or a department that comes to us at the last minute on something, we can claim unforeseen condition?
If it's unforeseen.
All right, man. I got 13 years with that guy, and I wasn't allowed to do that ever.
Well, he's aged. He's matured.
I've mellowed, I guess.
I agree with Jim. I mean, again, if you go out there with the police department and they walk the campus and they say, wait a minute, I'm sorry, we got a blind spot here. We didn't see that when we looked through drawings. Right. To me, it's an unforeseen condition that contingency should pay for, not going all the way back through the change order process. Okay. But, let's say we have to add 4 toilets because the architect blew it and the toilet room's not big enough. Okay, well, that's not unforeseen. That's an error. I think we're looking to be able to plug it into the correct categories for what should be acceptable, because if you're not in the job or Jim's not in the job, the policy needs to carry forward so that the same process happens.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you. And don't forget, we're businessmen too. We don't want to penetrate the barrier of the GMP where we don't have to. That means the school district is using money it could have used somewhere else. So that's a consideration as well.
Yeah, Jim, I've been on this long enough that I have not seen where somebody just wants to throw money at something because somebody asked for it. There usually is a decent amount of pushback.
And we're trying to do, sorry, it's a political statement. We're trying to do what's right for the kids. That's the thing. We get criticized, Jim and I, when I bring a board item forward, like I have several where we're reconciling a project and giving back hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they want to know, I could have used that a year ago on some other school if you didn't just, So we're trying to make sure that we're spending the money judiciously.
And let me be clear, that criticism is not coming from me. So
Wanda, they said it was all your fault before you were on.
Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that, David.
Everything in my office is my fault. I can't blame anybody else.
All right, I'd like to conclude our policy discussion. So are there any other questions about 7225? We've already talked about the other changes in other meetings. I've provided you documents to look at. Is there any other issue that I need to discuss on 7225?
I didn't have anything. Anything? John's okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Okay, the next one is 7.07 HVAC, which we're recommending to be
dump it.
Dumped. And
I think so. Yeah, okay. Obsolete.
And the other one was 7.23, which is retainage, and we're complying with law.
Yep, I was okay with that. John shaking his head. Anybody else? Okay, you're good to go on that one.
Okay, that's the end of the policy update. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back next month with 7225, and hopefully we'll wrap everything up then.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And you can go back to your other job and a half. Okay, we already had 502 audit risk assessment. Any issues with minutes by anyone? John, yes.
Yes, a couple things. On page 4, FC4, which was Adult Education Center, there was a couple change orders, and the notes indicate that CORC expressed concerns with the high cost of the utility changes, when in fact it was pulled by me due to inadequate AECOM estimates. We had a big discussion about that, and I'd like the meeting notes to reflect that. And I was given homework to research examples and bring them back to David.
Yes.
And I'd like to modify FC4 to add that. In addition, FC8, which is on page 6, this was Wellington Landings. It was the change order for closeout. And there was a indication in the meeting notes that overhead and profit are identified as fixed costs under the CM risk process. I'd like to modify that to staff feels that overhead and profit are identified as fixed costs, but CORC disagrees. That's another one I brought up, that I felt the overhead and profit should be brought back, and Dave Dolan was going to research that. He was given homework to research that one. In addition, I think it was you, David Porter, that brought up there was $22,000 for a well pump that you felt was expensive.
That was supposed to come back at this meeting with explanations.
Yes.
It was the Jupiter Agricultural, where there was a well pump going in for like $22,000, and everybody went, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't think it's probably be more than 5, so there's probably a bigger story there." And that was on our follow up to come back and get research. In fact, Angel was on the line and at that time and said, "Yeah, okay, we'll look into that."
Okay.
And I happen to know the guy that's putting it in, who's doing all the irrigation work. He was my client for a while too. So he's not busy. He's one of the most expensive landscaping guys I've ever used. So hopefully he was the low bidder on that job.
Mr. Porter, I actually did the research, but hadn't prepared for you. I'm sorry. I'll follow up with it.
Okay. With those edits, then the minutes, I think, should come back to us at next month showing the corrections.
They will.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair, with reference to the so-called standard motion, I believe we had discussed, if it was not last meeting, but the meeting before, that the motion is that CORC has no objection to the board considering, as opposed to recommending approval.
Yes, I think that should be our standard language going forward, that we don't approve anything. That Michael is correct, that when we have a quote-unquote approval, it's that we're giving the board our advisory opinion that we have no objection to it going forward.
Right.
So that should become our standard language whenever we allegedly approve something as a committee.
So that would be when these are reworked, the language would begin that CORC has no objection to the board considering, and then the specifics.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so let's revise those. Maybe even come back with an underlined, redline version that we can look at to know the specific changes that were made. we can accept that, and then it can be formalized into the recorded minutes.
We'll provide a red line version and a clean version.
Okay, good. All right, anything else on that, John? Okay. So that's for minutes and review and set the next agenda. I don't think we've mentioned anything to you. This is our last meeting supposedly under our emergency order to allow us to have the shorter quorum. So what's happening for July?
Hello. Yeah, just wanted to give everybody an update and follow up on Mr. Porter's comments that this is the last meeting under the temporary emergency policy, which will officially end on Monday. What that means for the July and August meeting is that CORC is going to resume business under the old or traditional policy. What's important about that is it is going to require, at least for July and August, a 7-person in-person to make the quorum requirement. On a brighter note, Governor DeSantis signed into law changes as it affects the school board committees. This law is going to allow the CORC members to attend, vote, and establish a quorum virtually as well as in person. So what that means is that now, once this law takes effect, is that we can do that by having a combination of virtual and in-person to establish the quorum requirement. The school district here, we have our own policy that governs the quorum requirement. So what that means is that the school board is going to have to revise and adopt a brand new policy that will incorporate the changes that are coming in by way of the new law. So for at least the July and August meetings, it's we believe that you're going to have to meet in person 7 so that CORC will be able to conduct its business. Now, our office is prepared, and I believe it'll be in the early July, probably one of the board special meetings. We are going to bring back the revised policy that's going to incorporate this, I'll call it a combination of the virtual and in-person for the quorum and the voting and the participation. When you adopt a new policy, there are certain guidelines and timelines that fit into that. So we anticipate that the board would probably finally adopt this policy either in August or at the latest September. So, it's good news because we will be able to go back to doing this, virtual and in person. We just, for at least, I believe, July and August, we're going to have to go back to the traditional method that we've done. So keep posted. I know Jim and Dave, we will certainly, let everybody know how this progresses, but at least for July and August, it's back to the same old. On a plus, we won't have to worry about alternate members and primary members. Everybody will be primary. And if anyone has any questions.
I of course, have the biggest objection. So I will.
Sorry. That was easy.
I don't know if you have the biggest objection, because I might have the biggest objection. I mean, this hybrid approach does not work. Where we got people online and we got people in the room. I mean, we've just tried it now, three different meetings, and we can't get the IT straight. We can't get the presentations straight. We just don't have the same conversations when we're all around the same table.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is Frank Barbieri.
Yes,
I
sir.
just want the CORC to know I put it on for the discussion, for board discussion at next Wednesday's meeting. So we'll try and expedite getting that policy changed. I'll start that next Wednesday when we discuss it with the board.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about July and August. Will we be required to then still do a Google Meet, even though we're required to be here, to offer the meeting up to the outside world?
Yeah, you can do 7 people, 7 CORC members need to be here present.
Yeah, I understand.
And then vote to allow any of the other 5.
If we're going to have that virtual meeting. The virtual meetings only started because of the pandemic. We never had that before. Right. Somebody could phone call in to participate in the meeting if they were absent as a CORC member, And that was all they were allowed to do to participate, not this Google Meet stuff where we have to set it up with cameras and all.
Yeah, since the pandemic, policy 109 has changed, so now it allows the virtual attendance.
So even though when we meet in person from now on, we have to offer up a visual Google Meet meeting for the world?
We don't have to. If it's deemed by the committee that that's desired, we would try to make accommodations to do so. But, I think we could get away with telephone.
Well, the problem is we got the feedback, we got the mic. So if we have 7 people around here plus staff, that means almost everybody has to have their own laptop, all connected and all with headsets, where we get the feedbacks, and all of that stuff doesn't work.
But I'm with you. I prefer seeing everybody's happy faces in person. It's wonderful to see all of you CORC members that are here today. You're right, life does become a lot easier.
I just don't see
trying to accommodate everybody's concerns and justifiable concerns. So it's really whether the committee has a specific.
Actually, I think it is. There's a hybrid issue that is still we have concerns. There's still concerns out there. But a year from now, 2 years from now, do we still want to have this in the work as part of the work system? And I think I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. And it's difficult for me to always attend, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. And so I think that until we know that there is no further problem from COVID, we should continue as we can in a virtual world, but not make it a permanent solution.
But then we have to figure out how is that going to happen. We can't have everybody around the table with laptops and headsets. Dave.
We can go to the board say we can. We can potentially go to the Fulton Holland boardroom where they
We cannot hear David.
You might be muted again.
I'm sorry. You'd think I'd know how to do Google Meet by now. I'm sorry. What I had suggested is that we could do the meetings at the Fulton Holland boardroom.
If it's available. It's usually booked solid.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of a big deal. Maybe they'll make an accommodation for us. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but if it's an alternative that we need to explore, I know the chief operating officer is on here, and I think the board chair is on. We can certainly ask for some assistance and see if we can move things around and make our meeting. If
All that does is allow somebody to see the meeting. There would not be two-way communication. Because I don't believe somebody connected to a Google Meet could then ask a question of everybody in the room. They can?
I've seen Miss Whitfield be a Google Meet while the rest of them were in the room, and they can do that in the boardroom.
This is Virginia. If I could make a comment,
Yes.
I appreciate the Google Meets. I think those of us who are virtual have no problems at all. It's you guys in the room that have problems. If you can just work out that, then
we haven't been able to.
And Google Meets would work just fine. I mean, it's happening in schools. They're teaching in classrooms and students are at home. I just can't believe that there's so much problem up there at your end.
Well, I think the way it's working in the schools is with the smart TVs that they have that have a camera on them, and they show the whole class. And the kids at home can then hear what goes on and see their fellow students.
What I'm saying is, if they can figure it out, have high confidence that given a little push, that it could be figured out for us also. Because making us all cram into a room before we're ready is not to my liking.
Yeah. Okay. Michael, hold on. Michael.
So I had a long discussion with David Dolan about a month ago on this. Part of the problem may be the Google Meets. I have a significant amount of experience with the large group meetings, both purely virtual as well as the hybrid. we do not have the problems that this one committee has. I had literally 2 weeks ago, we had 150 people participating in a hybrid with no issues. All right. I chair the Professional Ethics Committee for the Florida Bar, where we have 50 attorneys. All right. Everyone wants to speak, if you would. We don't have these problems. If I may, one of the issues to diagnose this, and it's a fairly simple one, is that there is one person in the room who is responsible to be the person monitoring who has microphones on. And the problem with the feedback is that you have multiple people in that room with their microphones on. And the same thing is occasionally you have people out of the room that have not muted their mics. This is a very simple process. It's only a question of whether the district is going to have someone who is there. And that means sometimes also the chair needs to mute while someone else in the same room is also speaking. And once we've done that even today, that stops the problem. There is a legitimate policy issue as to whether or not you want everyone in the same room because of the collegiality issues of it. And that's going to be a trade-off on there. I will say for purposes of nose counts, depending on which schedule we're looking at, because I have an invite from the district for, I believe it's the 29th of July, but the schedule that was put up on board docs this month shows 2 weeks earlier. I will be, I believe, at one or the other of them lecturing for the Florida Bar and will need an excuse or will be out of town. And in August, I'll be out of town also. So I will not be able to attend in person for either of those if that impacts your quorum. And Mr. Chair, I'd respectfully request a excused absence for those. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Michael, we have had IT people in the room for the last 3 meetings. And secondly, the other problem is right now I'm on a microphone that I can speak through, but I can't hear through because it's either not working with the laptop or it's the headset that's only working with the mic. So we've all had those issues the last 3 meetings where we've tried to do the virtual.
So we all have, normally, we all have our laptops when we come in. To the extent that we have problems with headsets, then that's something that District Tech needs to just test out and have extra ones there, and they're all ready to go before people walk in, so we're not spending 30 minutes dealing with this. I mean, in the world that I come from, these are simple tech issues, and considering the amount of staff that we have providing support, this should be no-brainers.
Mr. Porter, it's Frank.
Yes.
Again.
Yes, Frank.
You know, I've been chairing the meetings of the school board virtually. I mean, we've been doing this now for a year and a half, and constantly we have superintendent staff come in and speak to us on the big screen. We have no issues. I'm convinced that it's something up there that you guys, that our IT people can't fix, because it's very aggravating. I'm almost embarrassed that these meetings start this way when the public is watching and our vendors are watching, and it looks like the school district doesn't have its act together. So your suggestion that you move to the Fulton Holland is probably a good one, because we have absolutely no issues there. Board members will call in and we can see them on the screen. Our lobbyist in Tallahassee calls in Ron LaFace. We can see him on the screen. Constantly Mike Burke and the other administrative officials will log on to our meeting and talk to us, and we can see them, and we have no feedback issues. So if IT can't figure out what the issue is up there, then I suggest you all move to Fulton Holland and spread out in the rooms there so that you use the big screens that we have, the smart boards, and they work perfectly for us.
Yeah.
My suggestion.
This is Leanne. If I could take just a minute, I work on a lot of other committees, and I had a finance committee last week, and we've had ISOC and IROC, and ISOC is actually rivals the size of CORC when you get everybody in the room. At the boardroom, they're able to spread everybody out. But the big difference is instead of everybody using the computer for Google Meet with the headset, you may have a computer to look at things, but you're not logging into Google Meet. Instead, we have one computer that logs into Google Meet and broadcasts it up on the screen. So you can see everyone that's attending virtually, but you're not using your computer for Google Meet. Instead, you have a microphone just like our board members do, and that mic is running through a single sound system to communicate with Google Meets. And that eliminates a lot of the issues that you all are having.
So we still, whenever you've got technology, sometimes you have little glitches, but we're not having the issues that you all are having just because the boardroom is set up for sound. The TV crew is there. Mark Murray is there, and Mark is on the call, I know, but having everybody physically there in the room, able to very quickly update and change things, and just the built-in sound system that already exists in the boardroom, I think would eliminate a lot of the issues that you have. And I looked, your next meeting, the July 8th, the boardroom is available. So I know it's not necessarily convenient for everybody at the district office as opposed to at North County, but you might want to try it and see if that solves the problem.
I don't think July 8th is the next meeting. Is it the 15th? It's 15th, I believe.
Okay, it's on. I have it on the calendar. The district calendar shows it as the 8th. So that's what I was looking at. If it is the 15th, there is an audit committee meeting that day from 9 to 10:30.
Mm-hmm.
So we can work on the dates and make sure we get that ironed out, but it might be an option. And the issue with the boardroom is not as bad as it used to be, because the boardroom is used for committee meetings like this and the board meetings, obviously, but it's also used for a lot of staff meetings. Staff is now using everything with Google Meet. We're not using the boardroom the way we used to. So the calendar issues we used to run into, and I know Mr. Porter's familiar with that when I'm scheduling ISOC, and it seems like it's way out, a lot further out than it should be. Those issues aren't happening right now.
So perhaps we can get, hi, this is Wanda. Perhaps we can get with IT and see if there are any modifications we can do on North County to make the space more usable.
Prior to COVID, we were actually planning to do that. They actually came in and started retrofitting our room for sound, and they were going to get rid of these old projector cameras and things. So yes, I appreciate that. It's just, we really haven't been back to full scale just yet.
Dave, can you get a timeline to determine when they'll be able to do that?
We will.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I agree with Leanne. I think our biggest problem has been our own laptops or the district laptops and our headsets and being able to communicate. So if the boardroom fixes that, where we get rid of the laptop in front of us and we get rid of having to tie into anything, and we could just sit there having a meeting and the outside world can connect to that meeting, then that's exactly what we need. And if that can be arranged at where we're sitting right now, I mean, that's a convenient location and it frees up the boardroom for other meetings. So I agree with that. I think we'll have to figure out where we're going to meet next, but we're going to have to meet in person. And then we can decide whether we allow other people in through some type of outside connection.
Well, because the reality is, sorry, Virginia. The reality is that we don't have a whole lot of meeting spaces in the district. And so if we're able to outfit the current location, that gives us another space that we can use and gives us a lot more flexibility.
Yes.
I'm closer to the school district, so I like that site. I don't have to make the long trip. Some of us come from further away, so that is convenient. The parking is not convenient at headquarters, but it's been getting tough up here too. Anyway, when is the next meeting? I've heard various dates, and I would really like to get it on my calendar. Can somebody tell me when the next meeting is, or we just have to wait until you find out where?
Well, it's a week before the board meeting, so when's the board meeting?
I showed the board meeting as 7:20.
Well, if the board's 7:21, then we would be 7:15.
And I'll be out of town.
I'm out too, David.
Michael, you're out?
I'm out too.
Yes. John's out as well.
Are we going to have a quorum?
Yeah, I know. Michael, you're out that one? 15?
Yes, I'll be out of town on the 15th.
Okay, we're already missing 3 people then.
I may be able to attend virtually if you do it that way, but if I may make a request, hearing all the calendaring issues, I don't know if Susan's on the line here or whoever sends out the invites. I would appreciate if there would be a cancellation notice where the invite sends a request to cancel, and then a new invite that has the dates going out, because otherwise my calendar is all of the old invites on it.
Right, Dave, to fill you in, Michael made a good suggestion that through Susan or Jim, that you send out a cancellation schedule notice for whatever CORC meeting was already set up for the incorrect date, unless it hasn't been set out yet. It looks like CORC should be the 15th, okay, because the board meets the 21st. But we've already got Tom, John, and Michael that cannot make the 15th. And if we have to have 7 in person, then let's, 3 that are online making a quorum today.
Yes, there's no problem with that. We can, as long as we make sure we give proper notice on when that new meeting is. So if it's the 16th or the 13th or whatever date, as long as we give proper notice publicly, shouldn't be any problem. Location can change, et cetera. We can do that.
Yeah, and the thing with making a quorum for next month is that it won't be just from the primary members. It's now going to be all members, because primary and alternates go away. Holly, are we allowed to have virtually connected members to make a quorum? No.
Not until the board adopts the new policy incorporating the changes.
So Dave, we have to have 7 people in person. That could be a problem. I mean, right now, if Lou can make it and Ken can make it and I can make it, we know we've got 3. Oh, Tom, that's right. No, you're not here. Tom's not here, John's not here, so that's out. Virginia will be attending virtually. Frank, would you attend?
I can make it if you really need me, but I'd rather be virtual.
It sounds like we might really need you to make a quorum.
Well, I'm not going to make it up there unless I know you've got the 7.
Right. No, I know that.
Yeah.
Frank, do you think you'd be able to make it in person? Turn your mic on, Frank.
Again, it depends where.
Frank, you're muted.
David, this is Sam. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sam, we can.
Okay, I've been here all day, and I don't know if you all knew I've been watching. But anyway, I can make it. But one of my questions is, do we have to have, if it's up north there, can the public be virtual? Or could we, run into a room that we have 40 people in there?
No, if we, let's say, have it in the boardroom, I believe district policy is still going to require a certain maximum number in that room. I don't think the district is going to allow 100 people in that room.
Well, I'm just saying, if all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of public that want to show up, I feel a little bit, I feel comfortable with CORC. I'm not sure I feel comfortable with lots of our meetings where, there's not a seat available.
Yeah. Right now, we have a room upstairs, and we even have it today. So all you contractors, there's only one guy here. But all the contractors that are here, if we wanted to, we could have sent them upstairs. And Jim is in the conference room upstairs where they can be. And if they wanted to ask a question or speak, there's a smart board in that room, and we can turn it on and they can participate.
I feel more comfortable with that sort of arrangement. It's just like 7 or 10 or 12 of us in the room and not 25.
Well, Sam, for instance, today we only had 3 public members in the room. If we got more than that, I think we could make it our own position that unless you're 6 feet apart from somebody else, go out in your car and connect by Google Meet on your phone.
Yeah. Okay, just as long as we address that issue in some fashion.
Okay, so it looks like Frank and Virginia and Leah, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you be willing to attend in person?
Can you hear me? Yes, I'm here. I will be available.
Okay, thank you. So that's Leah and Frank and Virginia and Sam. 1, 2, 3, and we got Ken and Lou and me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got our quorum.
the big question is, what is going to be the date? Because you can say we're there. Did I hear you say possibly we might move to the Wednesday or the Friday instead of?
No, we're the 15th.
Right, but instead, in order to get the main headquarters, did I hear somebody say we might move to the Wednesday or the Friday?
No, I don't think we've talked about that. I think Leanne was the one that was mentioning that the 15th, the boardroom is occupied.
Right, so could we meet then on the 14th or the 16th?
I guess we'd have to then go back and check everybody's schedule to see if they're available on those days. But that's a possibility depending on the boardroom availability.
Here's a great thing. The 16th is a Friday. I would all but guarantee that it is empty because the district is closed on Friday in the summer, in July.
What about the IT people that need to operate the room?
I don't know if they're going to be here.
They wouldn't be here.
No.
Nobody's going to be there. Building's empty.
It's kind of.
Can't even get past the front gate because the security guys are gone.
Those guys will be there.
All right, we'll have to figure that out. That's not going to happen this morning.
Yeah. We'll poll everybody. We'll have Susan poll everybody for available dates and times based on what day we can get if we can get the boardroom.
Well, it would seem like the best option for our next meeting would be to try to get the boardroom so that we can get rid of the IT issues and therefore the outside world can participate. It's almost like we don't need the CORC members to participate virtually at that meeting because we're going to have an in-person quorum, and it's going to be everybody that won't be, that's available.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I've got to leave at this point unless you need me for a discussion or quorum. I wanted to thank staff for providing reduced file sizes. That's one step to make it easier to manage these items. Thank you very much.
All right, Michael, and I think we're about ready to adjourn anyway. So.
Well, we do have a new business.
Yes, Frank. I'm sorry, Frank. Tom.
Talking about the security issues. What is the issue? That the meeting is open to the public or that we are being provided the information? Okay. Is there possible, it is a concern. Is there a small group that can get, I'm not kidding.
Battery might have died.
Is there a small group that can basically be cleared by security and also keep it not public?
One person. You can't do more than one quote.
Because there are times, like in litigation, where it can be moved from a public meeting to a closed meeting so that you can get the oversight in there. And it's something for future thought. You can get the oversight in there, but also keep it secure. So for future reference, for future discussion, I wanted to bring that up.
It would have to be no more than one CORC member because we've done that before for any other committee.
So can we do it with other committees and have it so that, the finance committee, a CORC committee, and whatever other committees there are out there be the quote security committee to look at those issues?
I want to say
you're muted.
I want to remind everybody that the board is ultimately the ones who are responsible. And in fact, they are. There are a lot of things that the board is briefed on, and security is certainly briefed on closed session items.
But you're missing the purpose of CORC, and that is the oversight of that. And I think other committees have that same responsibility. And if we want to, it's to make sure that the money is being spent correctly and not frivolously.
Again, I go to the point that the board themselves actually do the job of oversight of the efforts of security in the fact that they are briefed in a closed session through proper channels of these types of activities, maybe not the very specifics of them, but they are. So it's not that there is no oversight whatsoever. In fact, staff works on these things, and the board is briefed on a lot of these activities through the chief. So while I may not get into the details of a particular project, it's not for lack of oversight.
I think, and I don't know if there's a way to do this, that it should go from CORC to the board to ask the board what involvement they want for us dealing with anything with security, whether it's systems, whether it's costs, whether it's schedules, whether it's change orders after a school's already under construction that happens. I mean, if the board doesn't want our oversight of that because they feel comfortable, however it's being already handled, it's off our plate, because we serve at the pleasure of the board for what they want us to look at. But to answer your question, Tom, I serve as the CORC representative on the sales tax committee. And so I'm the one person on there, I happen to chair the committee, and that's allowed. And then I bring CORC's input to that meeting about construction when it's coming up for the expenditure of referendum dollars. So that would be allowed. If there's a security committee, if there's a computer committee out there, and it affects something dealing with construction, we're allowed to have a representative go to that meeting and be part of that committee. But again, I would like the board to know, I mean, we can come up with all sorts of things where we think we should be involved, but the board tells whether they want that.
I have a question to
Is there a way we get that answer, to, Dave, from the board? I mean, is that something that, is posed as a question to the board? Tell us what you want CORC to do about security.
I will do that. And in fact, where I'm going to start, ultimately, I was going to do this anyway because I need to sit down with school police, the chief operating officer, and make sure we have a consolidated approach to this response. But as we're discussing it, it sounds more and more evident that I need to have some board insight. And obviously, that's not going to be public comment type of thing where the board weighs in. So, and I don't know the whole thing about the attorney-client sessions or closed sessions for the board, but I will work with the chief operating office to find out if there is something we need to do to get the board's input on it.
Yeah, I would want the board. I mean, I understand school police doesn't want any more eyes looking at it. And I wouldn't want more eyes looking at me either if I didn't have to. And so even staff may not want more eyes. I would really like some type of opinion coming back, even if it's individual polling for board members. Just to say, we didn't know CORC wasn't even looking at this stuff. Yeah, we want CORC to look at this stuff.
David?
Let them define our role.
David, it's Virginia. May I make a comment?
Anybody else have an objection to that?
David, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Virginia.
Okay. I would like the Holly or one of the attorneys to look at whether an executive session is possible if they do want us to look at something like security. And I like Tom's idea of everyone seeing it, not just one member. If they do want us to see it, is there a way to set up a policy to go into executive session the way the school board does?
We will, I'm sorry, we'll definitely look into that. As I recall, the executive sessions or the shade meetings, the participants in those are very limited by statute. So I'm not sure whether or not members of an advisory board would be, if they attend a meeting, if then it would be still considered a shade meeting. But that is certainly something I will review and get back to Dave about.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman.
Virginia, oh, go ahead, Mr. Barbieri.
Did we need to extend our meeting?
No, we're going to be ending very soon.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy, as the board's representative to CORC, I mean, I can take this back. I'll meet with you, Mr. Chairman, and also the general counsel, and I'd be happy to put it on as a board discussion item once I get the legal side of it from the general counsel, and we'll have discussion with the board as to what the input we would like to get from CORC on those expenditures. So I'd be happy to do that, to get it on for discussion once I talk with the general counsel's office.
Okay, thank you. That would be helpful because I think we need direction because there's been lots of discussion about security issues and expenses and after the fact stuff that gets done. And I just think we need that clear direction from the board as to how far they want us to dig into the weeds and where they want us to stay away.
No problem. I'll get together with you, Mr. Porter, and,
Okay,
and
very
the
good.
council to discuss.
Okay. All right, that's been resolved. And then I think we are ready for adjournment. Anything by anyone else? Seeing nothing, we made the deadline. We are adjourned. See everybody in July.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
I know, and I wasn't about